Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another week of the Wealth Cafe. I am so excited for today's coffee conversation. I am joined incredible co-founder Morgan Zanotti of Primal Kitchen. You know the brand. You probably love it as much as I do, and probably buy as much of it as I do. And so I am so excited today to dive into her founder story, the entire journey of her exit, and what she is up to now. So Morgan, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'd love to dive in. And I always think it's so different to hear a founder story from their own words. So if we can start at the very beginning, for those who don't know, where did the concept of Primal Kitchen even come from?
Sure. So yeah, I was living in California. I was 28 at the time, and a big like into the health and wellness scene that was LA in 2015. It was pretty like the paleo vegan wars were like raging, and it was like a hot time to be in health and wellness in Los Angeles. A
Oh,
lot of like
yeah.
underground stuff was kind of bubbling, but there was this guy, Mark Sisson, who had this paleo blog, and I was a big follower of his. And I was working at actually a Kavita, a kombucha company, and we sponsored an event Mark did, and I didn't have to go, but I wanted to go because I wanted to meet Mark. And then I met him at the event. We hit it off, and a few months later, he was selling supplements and writing a blog, direct to consumer supplements and doing a blog. Like that was pretty much, his thing. And a few months later, he was like, "Hey, I want to launch this food company. Do you think you could help?" So I came over and started working with Mark a couple years before we brought our first product to market. And he was one of the early people flagging like seed oils, which seems to be
Yeah.
like it's more of a main part of the conversation today than it was 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, there wasn't a single seed oil free condiment. There were a lot of people who cared, but it wasn't really like reflected in the grocery store aisles yet.
Hmm.
So we tackled a few things at once, and the first product we could commercialize was a mayonnaise, and we launched the first seed oil free condiment in 2015 under the Primal Kitchen name. Yeah, so that was kind of the like origin story, if you will.
Which is so funny because we look now, and for anybody that is on any form of social media, going after seed oils is the new big thing. So I appreciate you painting the picture that 2015 was a different scene.
Yeah, yeah, we were early. Like we like kind of yeah. I mean, yeah, it was definitely a different scene. There were people who
Yeah.
were there were passionate people who were avoiding seed oils, but it certainly wasn't like the conversation it is today.
Yeah. And I think you and Primal Kitchen are a big part of that conversation and bringing that to light because of, as you just mentioned, bringing a non seed oil based mayo to the market, right? People are then sitting there being like, should I be eating a mayo product with seed oils even in it? And so fast forward, then that leads to other products. Can you talk about how and what the journey looks like? And also, product based businesses are different. If you can dive into a little bit of how that journey worked as well.
Yeah, so well, I guess we always knew we wanted to be a based business. I mean, we were in CPG, like consumer packaged goods. There was no like way around that.
Yeah.
But mayonnaise is like 75% oil. People don't realize like how it's like really oil intensive as far as just like formulation goes. And so for us, our big things were like no seed oils and no sugar, like just keeping everything unsweetened. Those were kind of the two like trends we were hinging on. So after the mayonnaise, we were working on like a barbecue sauce, and they Mark presented me one that he had been working on before I met him, and it was like the second ingredient was maple syrup, and I was like, we're not launching this. Like nobody wants another like condiment with 30 grams of sugar and 2 tablespoons. It was
Hmm.
crazy. This was back when it was like it's paleo, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. It was like that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. So anyway, salad dressing was just kind of a natural next step for us. We looked around the grocery store and thought about like where else can we disrupt with like an unsweetened seed oil free play, and it just like made sense. So that was the end of the first year Primal Kitchen was in business. We launched into salad dressings. We actually launched a bottled avocado oil, and we launched a bar with collagen in it. I wouldn't recommend it. It was too many categories, too fast, and too much work for me
Hmm.
on my own. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to unpack some of that as well because I think it's so easy for all of us to see the highlight reel and it's amazing. And especially for us as women, we're like, hold on, there's so much more that happens in between like us being behind closed doors to you had this beautiful exit. Like, can you talk about some of those days of, oh my gosh, we're launching so many products at once. We're getting into all these grocery stores. Like, can you unpack some of that for us?
Just like what the early days were like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, the early days were crazy but fun. A lot of just like, I mean, it was like a lot of just things happening faster than you anticipated. Like we ran a run of mayonnaise and we were like, if we sell this in a year, that would be great. And we sold it out online in like 3 days. We launched we were in a little like office space in the Malibu Chamber of Commerce. We were like hand loading like pallets into trucks. I remember telling Mark that fall, like, hey, I worked for this company, Mad Dog Athletics, and the founder, like, bought a warehouse that he owned and rented to the company rented from him and they use that. So Mark, like, I was telling him, like, we need some warehouse space. Like, we can't be receiving
Mm,
like pallets of mayonnaise into the Malibu Chamber of Commerce that doesn't even have a loading and unloading dock. Like, we're hand packing pallets. And he like within a month, he was like, I bought a warehouse in Oxnard. And I was like, oh shit, I need to like be careful what advice, like he's really moving fast. I gotta be careful what I tell Mark to do. Um
yeah.
so it was a lot of that. Then it was like, we got one regional Whole Foods, okay, another. And then, I'm flying to meet with Publix and Mark's meeting with Costco and, we're in Expo West. I don't know. It was like a lot of just that kind of stuff happening like really quick. Um, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing too. I don't know if you've felt this, but it's like you feel like it's like one day you're like, okay, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do this? And you blink and it's like, holy crap, we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit too about balancing partnership, right? Because whether it's, a partnership in life, in business, like they can be hard, right? As you're navigating balancing everything. And so, what are some key points and takeaways that you can give for anybody who is navigating a partnership? And I'll break it down too, if you can talk about, especially in the earlier days, as well as then towards your exit. Like, how are you navigating everything in the partnership world? Because it wasn't just solely on you.
Yeah, I mean, Mark brought me in early before, like 2 years before we launched. I mean, he was going to call the brand Primal Blueprint in our first meeting. I was like, that's a terrible name. You should call it Primal Kitchen. And then I hired the whole team and really kind of had like the go to market strategy, price point strategy, marketing strategy, like the retail of it all. But I very quickly, before we launched, a year before we launched, or maybe even around the same time, no, probably a year before we launched, brought over this guy, Rick Wallace, that I had worked with, and he stepped into like the COO, CFO role. So
Mhm.
between Mark, the visionary who like funded it and had like a following, me, the president, sales, marketing, and then Rick on the ops and finance, like we had a well balanced partnership in that like everybody had their lane and knew what it was and respected each other's lane. And really we formed like a fast friendship and still like two of my closest friends today, Rick and Mark. Yeah. So it was like a beautiful part of the Primal Kitchen journey, just like the relationship building that existed there. We never really had an issue, but I think everyone knew their role and where they stood and what their lane was, and it just worked really
But I
well.
think that's a testament to it, right? And that's kind of what I think is so helpful to hear is that everyone had defined roles. And that's where I think so many things for people get messy is when they don't know, okay, well, whose job is this? How are things falling through the cracks? Like, where are things happening? And so
Yeah.
it sounds like so much of the success you had in Primal Kitchen was, okay, this is what this person's hired for, and this is their area of expertise. Like, this is how they're going to push forward. And that's what helped to make Primal Kitchen so successful.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it was so much the hires. I think that was almost the opposite. Like we
Okay.
didn't have very solid boxes. It was like you're coming in for marketing, figure it out, and your role is going to change probably in 6 months. Like that's just because it evolved so fast. But on the
Yeah.
partnership, like the executive team who was running it, like we didn't we weren't even that like I guess we were kind of like I knew what I knew and I knew I needed someone on the ops and finance side to step in and help. And then it just we didn't have overlapping skill sets. I think it's hard with like two
Mm,
founders who are both like really marketing heavy and they don't have like a balance or like different lanes, then you end up like setting up a situation where like people are like fighting a lot, like because there isn't a clear like
mhm.
voting partner for that area of the business, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you don't have the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was the intention always to exit and to leave? Like, did you ever see that as a vision when you first started?
Yeah, from day one. There's no money to be made in food and beverage until you exit your company. It's very
Yeah.
hard. Like margins are thin. You really need like, you need help and a lot of money to like make it to be a scalable big business. So from day one, that was like the goal. Mark was like, if we could sell this, that would be great. Like, there when we were doing 50 million of EBITDA, we didn't raise money, or sorry, we were doing 50 million in revenue and we had 2 million of EBITDA and a $9 million line of credit that Mark had a personal guarantee on from the bank. So like it's a lot of pressure, right? Like it
Yeah.
was $9 million of working capital just to keep this $50 million business alive that was only spitting 2 million of EBITDA. So you do the math. Like there
Yeah.
isn't it's not like there was a lot you could like there's a lot of risk and a lot of pressure and a lot of stress for an entrepreneur without like a ton of profit on the bottom line.
And you all start to then feel that too because you see, and especially when you have that close relationship, I'm sure you see that person that has that pressure on them.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us the story too, especially for the audience. How did the exit then come about? Paint the full picture in the story there.
Yeah, so like we were 3 years in and we had done a really good job of like building the brand in the natural channel where it's like easier to play without having to raise a ton of money and like less stress, like more learning, grassroots. Mark and I were demoing at PC Greens in Malibu and in Boulder, Colorado at Whole Foods, like, just more like natural independent grocery store brand building work. And then we uh decided that we wanted to like bring on a partner and we didn't know if it was going to be like a private equity partner who was going to come in and buy a majority and help us take it to the next level or a strategic partner meaning like a Kraft Heinz of the world who's going to come in and take it to the next level. So we very formulaically hired an investment banker and went through like a process which I didn't
Mm,
realize how formulaic it was, but called a process, and they helped talk us like they helped lead us through the acquisition to Kraft Heinz. And
that's
that
awesome.
was
And
six
so how
years
long was
ago.
that?
That was
Okay.
6 years ago. So it was like 3.5 years into our journey. I was 32 weeks pregnant when we sold the company. We signed the deal on like November 28th. I had my first baby on November 6th. It was crazy. Like I mean, I had a C-section and I always say like, thank God, because that was my 5 days of maternity leave. Like I got home on a Friday and Mark and I had like a 4-hour call on Saturday. We bonused everyone who worked for us. So we had like talked about it for years, but we had this long list to go through like, okay, what are we allocating for everyone down to like warehouse forklift drivers and everyone who ever worked for us.
That's
Yeah, and then
amazing.
we were very intentional in the exit about like wanting to keep like the ethos of the brand alive and the people around because I think that's ultimately what creates the ethos and the authenticity behind the brand. And I am proud to say like we're 6 years post acquisition now. I stayed on and ran the company for 5 years, which is like
Okay.
some sort of founder record. And then the brand, like the team is like more or less still there. Like my first hire was my best friend from childhood. She's still our VP of marketing today. A woman named Amanda is in an EVP of growth role today. She was in the early days. Rick retired. He was like, this
Mhm.
was kind of his last rodeo. So he retired, and Mark is 72. He's still on the board, so as am I. And then Mark is launching like a shoe company with his kids. So that's like or with his son, Kyle. So that's kind of like a project of Mark's now. But yeah, we're still very much involved in the brand.
How did you decide? Because you talked a little bit about the ethos and kind of wanting to keep your passion, like this was something you were passionate about and keeping that alive. How did you then decide and sit here and say, okay, this Kraft Heinz is the right company to go with going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if we would have sold to like a I don't know, General Mills, right? Like they
Hmm.
would have probably ultimately ended up like deprioritizing our business because we don't have like overlapping category synergies. So there was just like
Mm.
categorical synergies with Kraft Heinz that made sense for our business. Like we were in ketchup, Kraft Heinz, right? Like they're in mayonnaise,
Yeah.
salad dressing. So I think there was just like overlap there. And they were very like we signed in November. We didn't even close until January 3rd. And they flew out like their executive team, sat down with us, and we had like a 4-hour meeting on like we want to memorialize like what your guardrails are from an ingredient standpoint. Like we want to understand like how you make formulation decisions and like get that in writing. And this is something like we want you guys to hold true to moving forward. Like never have they come to us and been like, canola oil's cheaper. Like let's blend that in. It just like I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody has these ideas that like they're out there trying to like ruin the world, like this big evil corporation thing. And it just like it isn't the reality. Like at least it wasn't for us. They really like they didn't pay a premium for the brand to like recognize the authenticity and trust we built in this premium products that they all loved to like want to ruin the brand. So they put their money where their mouth was. That we had like retention bonuses to keep people on board. They really left us alone. We kind of got to like keep doing the parts of the business that were fun and we were good at, and we got to like offload the parts of the business that are not so fun as an entrepreneur, like bank financing, legal
Mm-hmm.
stuff, HR, and QA. Like they stepped in and helped us with a lot of that stuff that they just like did a lot better than we could. They had a lot more experience there than we did like 3.5 years into our journey.
Which is also smart on their end. Like putting on like my business owner brain for a second here. When you look at it from the lens of Kraft Heinz, it's smart for them to keep the incredible brand that you built through Primal Kitchen, because people trusted both you and the brand by saying, okay, like we want to purchase Primal Kitchen products because they're pulling these things out of there. If they were to just come back and say, okay, we're going to dump all the sugar back in there, we're going to dump the canola oil back in there, that's like that you're ruining what people are purchasing the company and the products for. Like that would just be like taking a lighter fluid in a match to
Yeah.
everything you've built.
Yeah. They weren't interested in that. Like that just wasn't that wasn't what they wanted to do.
Right.
And
And
I think
instead,
they were like a little later to the better for you game in like a positive way, in
yeah,
that they like were allowed to they like watched what some of their peers did and then like did it better, if you will. So,
yeah,
yeah.
learn from the other mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So you had an incredible exit. And, some people would probably be like, well, like, why not just retire and enjoy the time and finally have your maternity leave, or finally like go on vacation or do whatever it is you want to do, but you are actually starting a new venture.
I
And
know.
so
I'm asking myself that question you just asked me like daily, to be honest. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like this is a lot. Like in beverage nonetheless, which is like definitely the worst place to be, in the grocery store, and I know better. So I don't know, there must be some sort of screw loose. Something's not quite right in my psyche
yeah,
that put me here.
no, as founders, I think we have like something in us where we either can't sit still, or we're like, no, but I can go do it better and I can fix this industry. And like, there's something like in us, I think that we're born with some like genetic something that makes us have to go and do it. So I understand. You're in good company here.
Yeah, a good psychotic company. I mean, geez.
Yeah,
Yeah,
caffeinated company.
something.
Um,
Yeah.
so tell us, number one, what the new venture is, because I love seeing it all over social media, everything you're working on and your reels about it. You had one where you were going into the food store, like picturing out all the product, and I was cracking up watching it. So thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah, no, I wanted to see what it looked like on shelf. I am rolling out in Whole Foods in October, so I'm super excited. They were willing to like partner with me on the launch. So I'm very thankful to the Whole Foods team. Um,
Congrats.
yeah, no, it's exciting. Yeah, it's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us all about the product. Give us
Oh
the
yeah,
sneak
so Waay.
preview.
So I left in like a day-to-day operating role a year and a half ago. I'm just a 5 foot tall, 112 pound female who's been trying to lose the last 5 to 10 pounds for the greater part of the last 2 decades. And as such, I feel like we've been told like cut the calories. Okay, no, we're not doing let's do less fat. And then it's like, you know what, actually, if you could eat less carbs. And then it was like, you know what, we're not eating at all. We're intermittent fasting now. So if you could just forego the eating like entirely, that would be great. And then like protein came along and it was like,
Oh yeah.
you need more. You need to eat more protein. And I was like, oh wait, I actually like can stop restricting and start. And it makes me sound like I have an eating disorder and I don't. And God bless anyone out there who is struggling with that. Like I'm not trying to make light of that, but like I feel like there is this subconscious like elimination restriction thing that's kind of been layered into like diet culture for women for decades. And I was really like refreshed to hear that like we can consume more of something. And like to
Yeah.
the mental shift to be like, oh, I need to get 100 grams of something a day, like, or 25 grams of fiber, 100 grams of protein, instead of like, I need to cut down my carbs to 20 grams or I need to cut my calories, was a real like positive psychological shift. And it
Mhm.
wasn't something that was like ever super consuming for me, but like just noticing what happened mentally in that shift. And I just don't think there's any more efficaciously well studied like nutrient on the planet than protein at this point in time. Um,
Oh, it's everywhere. It is the hot new
it
bag of the
is.
season.
It's not even that new. It's really like the basis even of all the restrictive diets. Even the vegans are obsessed with protein. Like, here's how I get my protein
Mhm.
on, and they always have been, right? Like, oh, I mix the rice and the beans. You have the like
Mhm.
even there's an obsession there. And I just feel like it was the basis of the Atkins diet. It's just everyone was talking about what you took away. They weren't talking about what you were left with. And now we're talking about what you were left with. And I think that's interesting. So I think we're seeing for sure like an industry-wide proteinification of everything. I saw like mashed potatoes today with 6 grams of protein in them. And I'm like, oh my God, like, am I one of these just like another person throwing protein in something? But we have been drinking protein for a long time. It's a
Mhm.
big category. And we're also drinking a lot of sparkling water, or at least my mom friends are. And
Yep.
I thought, like, wouldn't it be nice if I could drink my LaCroix, but it didn't taste like dirty socks? And yeah, yeah,
I love
that's
it. So
kind
then
of
to
the
summarize, this
basis.
is going to be a protein
This is
sparkling
going to be a
water.
sparkling water with protein in it, 0 grams of sugar, 45 calories, 10 grams of protein. It's really like tastes more like a soda. It's full flavored, but like a lightly sweetened soda, if you will. It's not like the flavors are grapefruit, raspberry, lemon, and orange. It's very good,
So
very
fun.
refreshing. Yeah. So
You make such a good point, right? Because when you sit here and you look at, and not that, I love, absolutely love these brands like the Poppies and the Olipop. I drink more Olipop than probably is recommended. But when you look at them, it's the health benefit, like everything is really how much more protein can you get in there, the protein to keep you full. It doesn't have those things.
yeah, I think the fiber is like legit in Olipop, but it does
Yeah.
hurt my stomach. And I love Poppy. Like I'm a Poppy consumer. I love it. My kids still love it. I'll always drink Poppy. But we're drinking like $40 billion a year of soda. It's like a huge TAM. So I think there's room in the market for like a few more options that just do a little bit more for us.
It's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so and that is that how you then sat back and said, okay, I'm gonna go back into the food and beverage industry because
I felt like it was something I couldn't not put in the marketplace a year and a half ago. I was like, I have
mm,
to do this. And then the universe just kept kind of like pushing me. Like all these things kept happening. And then I would have all this self-doubt. And then it would be like something would pop up or I'd get introduced to someone or whatever. And now it's really interesting. I've been working on it for a while. I wish I could have moved faster, but here I am. And like there's a new one launching like every day. There's like 12 protein waters in market now or coming to market or launching soon. So there's definitely like a land grab happening. We've been buying flat protein water. I I,
mhm,
I learned about Isopure like 2 years ago, which has been around forever. It's just like
yeah,
a water with protein in it. And I was like, what? Like, how am I've been in this health and wellness space for my whole career. I
yeah.
never knew this was a thing. Like, there's no way in this age of Ozempic, like, this doesn't just take off. So that was kind of like the impetus for the brand. Yeah.
That is amazing. Was there any single moment too? Because you mentioned how like it was kind of like the universe kept telling you, you have to do this, you have to do this. Was there any one moment where you finally kind of surrendered and you were like, fine, I'll do it, I'll check it out? Or
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even like fully sold when I went and sold it into Whole Foods in the spring and like they were like, great, we'll take it nationwide. Like, let's do it. And then I was like, okay, fuck, I really have to do this. Like,
you were like,
yeah.
oh crap, like now I
Yeah, I
really
was like,
have to, I
okay,
don't have a
I'm
choice.
doing this. Like, yeah, I mean, it would, I have been the most reluctant entrepreneur you'll probably like ever talk to in your life. Like, I just think you know too much the second time around and it's like terrifying. So,
Yeah.
the amount of just like self-doubt and anxiety is like, it's real, even as someone who like, and maybe it's worse being an exited founder because like people know who you are and they're watching you a little bit. Like, I don't think anybody really cares, but I am known in the industry a little bit and feel
Hmm.
like, I don't know, it feels like more pressure, and almost like a little bit of like I don't know how to say this. I wasn't the like head cheerleader. I played soccer. I wasn't like the head cheerleader in high school, but you feel a little bit like there is a little bit of people who've already had success where I think a lot of people are wanting to see them fail. Like I think
Oh
there's
yeah.
a little bit of
No, yeah.
of truth to that. So, you can kind of feel that. You're like, oh, I don't know. Like, but when you're the underdog and you're just like 28 and you launch Primal
Yep.
Kitchen, people are like rooting for you. You know what I mean? And now they're kind of like, I don't know, but I got to get over this. This is like too much about my like relationship with food and also my internal anxiety, but it's very real for me in this present moment.
No, you're in the right place to talk this through. Don't worry. Safe space.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's true, right? Like we totally root for the underdog. And then I think we have that like you can only be a one hit wonder in society, which is so twisted, which is like, why can't you succeed? You know, we fail how many times, whether it's on a daily basis with the small things, but like, why can't we succeed more than once? And so
Yeah.
I think it's amazing and I'm so excited for you and I can't wait to see it on shelves this October. And I definitely know that myself and the entire Wealth Cafe community, we are rooting for you. So
You're amazing.
we do not want to see you be a one hit wonder. So
I love it. Well, it's called Waay, Waay, and it launches in Whole Foods in October. So I should have, I probably, a good founder would have dropped the name sooner than where we are. But there
don't
you
worry,
have
we'll
it.
link it in the show notes. So
I love
it'll
it.
be all linked so we have it. And when we have an official launch date too, we can add all of that in here. But I do like to end every interview and coffee conversation here with a question. And that is, what is one thing you do every day that makes you feel wealthy?
Oh, laugh with my kids.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. What did they do today to make you laugh?
Oh my God, they're hilarious. Like my middle one was like, I farted on my foot. Can I smell your feet? And then he's like, they smell like blueberry pizza. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, where else are you going to get this feedback? Or like, they're funny. 3, 5, and 6-year-old boys. It's like a frat house. It's crazy here, but they're like launching off cushions before school. Yeah, I feel like if I can find like a little moment to find joy with my kids, it's a successful day. If I like go a day, I'm like really protective of my time at this point in my life. Like
Yeah.
I pretty much don't travel unless like I have to. And I mean, like I didn't even go to my first production run. Like I was like, someone else can go who's smarter than me. I'm not
Mhm.
going. It takes like a lot for me to leave on like an overnight trip. I don't know. This time I want to be home and like here for bedtime and all that stuff for the kids. So yeah.
They're also
Yeah.
at that age where they have that like good belly laugh that you know is so
Yeah.
genuine that you
Totally.
just like it's just so good. So I think that is amazing. And I appreciate you spending the time with me today and sharing your amazing founder story. And I can't wait for it to continue and to see all the amazing things that you continue to do. So thank you so much. Where can people follow you, follow the rest of your journey, and keep up with everything?
Sure. On Instagram and TikTok, I'm Morgan Zanotti, Zanotti. And then Drinkway on Instagram. I don't even think I've registered my TikTok brand account, but drinkway.com and then Whole Foods October Way, Waay. Check us out. Give us a try.
Amazing.
Tastes amazing.
Amazing. Can't wait to try it. And I know everybody else will be excited to try it as well. And thank you so much. We will see you all for another Wealth Cafe episode next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks, Caroline. Bye.